lockdown happen. If that is the case, kids are going to be told to hand over the remote to the parents for good for quite some time, and we just might see another drastic dip. So it's let's see how it really pans out. Right now, it's difficult to plan your life as one had been doing it in the past, knowing that these are the seasons when you could come up with new launches and new products. So it's it's
Shall we go live?
Yep.
Yeah. So, hey guys, good morning and welcome to the Animation Masters Summit 2020. This is the 21st version of the Masters, or the Week with the Masters converted into Animation Masters Summit. And we have a lovely panel today. We have Anusika from the Nickelodeon and Wycom 18. We have Don Anderson from the Google team, YouTube, APAC region. We have Sujoy Bardhan from Sony A. And we also have Uttam Pal Singh from Discovery Kids. And I think I can't ask for more to have, a much better panel on what, we are going to actually look at the most, loyal kind of audience that our kids are, and how this whole pandemic has really looked at, entertaining kids, and it suddenly came under pressure for sure. But what we would like to know from each one of them as to how they adjusted to the whole challenge, and what are the innovations, because the pressure on the programming teams is very high. The production of animation is a little slowed down because of this whole system getting affected. At the same time, the advertisers are also going to give us a challenging time, because there are lesser budgets, and with lesser budgets, it directly impacts the production budgets, and how innovatively can we really look at engaging kids. So without wasting much time, I think let's first go to Anu and look at Anu. It's really been nice talking to you on several forums, but this is a very special time, and I remember talking to you in the beginning of COVID, end of March, and we looked at challenges. When was the first time that you realized that it's going to probably last for a long, and a huge amount of strategy change will have to be done? The shows that you wanted to bring in this summer probably might have to be postponed or whatever.
Hi, everyone. And thank you for inviting me on this panel. It's always great to be part of Masters Summit. I have been present in person for these summits on two different occasions. So Ashish, coming to your question, when did we realize this is going to be long lasting? To be very honest, we literally played it week by week, month, quarter. Every 15 days there was a reviewing of strategy. How are we going to play it out? Things were so uncertain, and it happened so suddenly. The only saving grace for the kids category has been that the whole lockdown happened closer to the summer vacation period. And most of the channels, most of the kids category, for us, summer period, the vacation period is a key period in the entire year, when the viewership is at its highest. And most of the channels, or rather the entire category, gears up for all its big launches during that period of time. So there were certain changes in the strategy that had to be made, because while we were prepared, but we knew this is an unprecedented time. And the last minute detailing that needs to get into finally making the shows ready, and at the same time keeping yourself prepared in terms of the it's not just the basic first few episodes which are ready with which you normally end up launching the show, but the pipeline has to be ready as well to back it up. And that's when we realized, because with the sudden lockdown happening, the studios came to a complete halt, at least in the beginning of the lockdown. And that's when we had to revise our strategy all of a sudden. But to say that we anticipated how long this lockdown is going to last, I'll be honest with you, as far as we were concerned, we didn't know. We were literally playing it week by week, month by month. And even today, we are reviewing our strategy virtually every 15 days and figuring it out, how to pan out. What is it that we need to hold back, and what is it that we really need to come out with? We knew, of course, from the data itself, we knew that the ratings are going to shoot through the roof, and they did. Unfortunately, at the same time, what happened was that the monies dried up in the market all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so that became a very important factor for us to roll out and figure out our lives for this period of time.
Yeah, Uttam, although the money has dried down, but the thing is, like when the channels are like parents to the kids, you can't tell the kids that the money has dried. They need their programming. They like their characters, and when they are not, going out to play, and the schools shut much earlier, the impact on socialization is even more higher. So, what is that innovation that you can do to really see that we keep them engaged in how the numbers played? Sujoy, I'm going to come to you with the numbers too. But what do you think is really going to change for them?
Right. So thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Master Summit and Toons. It's wonderful, to be part of this panel and to be again, joining the family. So coming to the question, Ashish, basically, you're right. We as programming for kids, have a responsibility, as well as those responsibilities. I wouldn't say we're taking away from parents, but I think we really look at how to engage the kids, how to make sure during this COVID times that the stress doesn't get to them so much, as it would be to the entire household. And I think because we have some really such strong characters we've been building up, each one of us on that front. So the idea was using those characters, using these wonderful icons which we've created, which already have a great fan following with the kids. How do we keep the engagement going? How do those characters come into the use and are able to make the kids understand the situation? So we did some tactical let's say little know-how about what COVID is, how is it going, using a little Singham, both on air and off air, as a character because of his following. And we continue to build on shows and some specific stories in which little Singham will be going through that adventure of fighting a virus, and how he is able to find his strength without even beating a villain, because this is a different kind of a villain which they're facing. So all this thing and the time of COVID, in fact, has kept us very busy. In fact, as Anu said, it was just starting of the summers, which was a good thing. So we were prepared to some extent, for the programming. But to last this long and to find a strategy with the production partners to, figure out how to keep the pipeline running, it has kept us very busy. And especially when the kids are at home, which means we as kids broadcasters don't really have a holiday, and we are keeping it going for.
You're never going to have a holiday.
I wish it continues, because the way the ratings have gone up, it should continue. Right. At some point of time, we do need a little bit of relaxation. Yeah,
that's right. So Sujoy, what percentage of viewership really went up, and how do you see that sustaining? And what do we do to justify, that the remote remains with the kids, and because the GEC is, not having a new programming because the shoots cannot happen. So the pressure is definitely on the kids channel, because here you can actually run the repeats, you can do, a whole lot of innovation, because dubbing it in different languages, and it works with this particular category.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Ashish. That's quite interesting. So I'm going to take a step back and basically talk about in this current situation, kids basically have got a lot more time than they've ever had. I don't think they've had this kind of a lengthy vacation. And we just spoke briefly about the vacation piece. I think whenever kids are on vacation, we are basically at the top of our game. So we basically need to make most of the time that they can possibly give us. So they are basically spending a lot more time across mediums. our category is at a 550 to 600 GRP levels. It's shot up to 700 GRP levels, which is what normally happens during summers for us, and that's why a lot of content gets infused into the category. However, this kind of stayed much longer, and for us to connect with these kids, to build loyalties, it was very important not just to focus on. Of course, there was a lot that went on, and everybody else also spoken about how they had to gear up to ensure that the pipeline was in order, because eventually, if you don't keep putting freshness onto the channel, it is going to take an impact. But it was very important how to extend these characters into some of the things that even Uttam spoke about taking these characters on and making them partners to take them through this journey that they are currently facing. Right. So whether it is the tactical things that Uttam spoke about, whether it is as simple as creating content that is more in the learning space. So I'm not talking about our brand suddenly hopping from an entertainment brand to suddenly become a learning brand, but what is the way in which we can make most of the time that you have. So creating content around that. So some of the content that we've created around that space is about teaching kids through home shot live action videos of DIYs and things like that. So we've done tons of workshops. There are dance classes that have happened for kids. So partnering with them in a holistic manner and not just through the content that we are showing on air, because that means that they are engaged not just through a television, but they are experiencing this brand. They are experiencing their favorite characters through multiple things that you're doing. We've launched a few games. Our gaming numbers are looking better than they've ever had, just because kids have now time to do a lot more. Our numbers in terms of digital has grown tremendously. So all of that shows that they have got a lot more time than ever before. And they definitely want that outlet to, we've also created something which is a hope song for kids, which is, telling kids of how kids are warriors, and just by staying at home, they are contributing towards keeping themselves and everybody else safe, right? So they then become the people who are responsible, and they find it, wow.
Yeah, I know. I have also seen some of lovely characters, talking about usage of masks, sanitizer, and now there is a new film that I'm involved with Little Singham, which is about disposal of mask is very important, and how you really want to dispose it, because that might spread
that's another
virus. So those are the educational bits that kids understand when their characters tell them. But Don, before I come to them, I want to quickly ask, because we are on this topic, Anu, which were the categories? Whether the preschool jump was much higher than the 6 to 10, or 10 to 14? How was the situation?
So, Ashish, overall the numbers had shot up. Whether it's across all the age group, literally starting from 2 to 14.
Yeah.
We had seen our main premium channel, Nick, which touched the almost close to 800 TVTs or so, which is unprecedented. As a matter of fact, for us, Nick Jr. is something that has, today it almost, if we look at just the urban areas, if I talk about the last week data, it almost had a 6% market share, which we ourselves couldn't anticipate. But I guess the smaller kids are sitting at home, and parents are feeling far more safer to give them the remote. Yeah. And especially on brands like Nick Jr., where then they know the content is absolutely safe and they are in their own comfortable. So that has seen an unprecedented growth as well. So it's not a particular age group. It's actually across the entire age group, which is 2 to 14, which has seen a huge growth. And it's seen a huge growth for all the channel, for the entire category, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So Don, coming to you, we have heard all the broadcasters, and there is a very specific age profiles. They know their audience because they have been actually working on this. You have a much much bigger and a bird's eye view, with what you do in the Asia Pacific region, and how do you really see this whole trend, and how did you modify your strategy on the programming side?
Well, thank you, Ashish. I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of the experiences we're all facing and having, and the upside that we're also experiencing as an outcome. Just before I get into that, though, I just want to thank Ajay, the teams there too as well. Tunes, I had actually the opportunity to be at a couple years back. Actually, my first year of joining YouTube, I had the fortune of being invited by Jaya to the summit, and it was great. It was a tremendous experience, and love the energy of the Tunes team. Team Tunes are amazing group. Yeah. So thank you again for the opportunity. But when we look at what's happening in the YouTube kids space and YouTube space with kids content, it's been phenomenal. I mean, pretty much since mid-March, we've just been running nonstop, and I think everybody's probably in the same boat. But when it comes to the content that creators are actually producing, it is so diverse. I mean, we work with many of the top broadcasters across the globe, and they're very strong partnerships that we have there. And also, of course, endemic studios and endemic live action creators too as well. Animation studios are obviously, the likes of Choo Choo and USB Studios and others, and Tunes too. I mean, it's difficult times for production, but people have gotten very creative in terms of how they package their content. DIY has played very, very, very well across our platform. I think it's providing that where our creators and partners have come into this is looking at how they provide comfort content, right? Mm-hmm. Families and parents and kids are in great need of reassurance. And, I've got two little boys here. My wife, we've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And how do you keep them hopping, right? How do you keep them engaged? I mean, they're out of school. They're out of school this week, which makes it really challenging to be able to ensure they're looked after. So the messaging and the work that we're doing with creators is how to assist them in thinking about more broad opportunities around whether it's DIY or educational content. Sujoy, you mentioned that too as well. We've seen some interesting work happening in with Ministry of Education, right? Leaning into how they can take their curriculum and bring it to those families, those students in need at home. And we've launched a lot of programs around that too as well. It's an exciting period of time, a challenging period of time, obviously. We also see themes of well-being coming up too as well. You see some really interesting work that live action creators are doing, just very rudimentary type in their home with a camera, but it's leading to a tremendous amount of watch time consumption and energy with audiences. Yoga, workouts, PE workout with Joe Wicks out of the UK. He's another big phenomenal character in this space. So it's challenging but exciting.
So which categories, according to you, are actually doing more innovative works, whether it's a preschool or a little older than that?
I see it across all segments, right? So we're seeing it obviously within DIY live action, and anything in terms of physical education, like what I mentioned with Joe Wicks out of the UK. I think you also see in the animation space is they're doing maybe the offshoring to another market where they're more active. So there are pockets of activity where, studios have not gone home in some markets.
That's right.
Like Korea is a good example of that, where we have partners like Smart Study of Ping Fong, Baby Shark fame. They've continued to work and output. Their challenges, perhaps like others, is how you do voiceovers, like anything in terms of mixing and leveraging that. But generally speaking, other markets are really moving forward on as much as they possibly can in that. They may be like Disney's done some amazing work in this space in terms of their uploads to YouTube around, I would say, cooking and things that families need at home, where they've taken line art, really just not full animations, and incorporated that into a live action setting. And I think that's really exciting, and that's engaged a lot of audiences too.
Oh, that's cool. In fact, Uttam, talking about the production pipelines,
right.
Definitely in the month of March and April, most of the studios across the country got affected. And suddenly the lockdowns came in and people didn't know what to do. As we were actually talking on several industry forums, the studios were busy shifting workstations to different artist homes. But the network remained a major problem because the dailies couldn't happen because they couldn't transfer the files. We needed a monkey courier for which the permissions didn't come through.
Yes.
So how did you guys handle the production? And I'll come to the voiceover with Anu and Sujoy as to what special things have you done for the voiceover issues?
Right. So I think inherently, what was most important was that between us and the production partners, primarily, we would work with two, which is Reliance Animation and Paperboat, studios. So the thing is, inherently, we knew that that we could work this, somehow we have to find a way to work it out. And we have an opportunity here. So basically there was a positive, there was not a negative vibe that, what will we do? Everything is coming crashing down and what is going to happen? So first thing, there was a positive, we only just needed a certain time, which means we had to find the programming, we had to give them some time to figure out their pipeline back again with the team. At the same time, we have to go back to on the broadcast and programming side and figure out that, okay, this is the time and we won't be probably getting some new premieres. So let's figure that out from both ends. While and there are these big studios, yes, but the artists are from all over the place. They could be from all over India. They're not necessarily from the same city. So that was a big issue. And they might be living with friends along, 3-4 people. So during COVID, it was unprecedented because first thing is, that you have to figure out your own safety. You have to figure out, your own routine in a day. Aapko khana kahan pe, have to arrange for food. You have to clean up stuff. Yeah. And then when your mind is settled, you come down to figuring out the work side. But we knew that we'll be able to find it. So between, primarily, it was the studios who took the lead to, figure out with the animation studios whether to give them desktop, arrange for softwares and hardware, as Anu mentioned, and then giving them a task, because it's not that you're sitting at home, there is a certain task and a deadline on your head, to be delivering, because there is this entire trust and a chain from production house to the broadcasters. Now, some things we were able to figure it out because, let's say, some voiceovers we had done before the COVID happened, so those productions were on. But some of the voiceovers we had to still do as new as the scripts got completed and they were done. And then I think some part of the processes were going smooth, but then we realized that the file is now made. Now, how do we upload it and how we get ready for broadcast? In which it becomes again the issues, concerns was from the broadcasters' end of how to now telecast this, how to make sure these heavy files are able to go for relay. And in that regards, Discovery as a company has been in transition to go cloud system for a while. This was a big transition and thankfully got completed during the same phase. So we were able to figure out a way between the teams for it to get telecasted, and all the things basically fall into place with a little delay. So the pace was not 100%. We were working, let's say, about 80% pace, which was still very good, and we were able to meet the commitments, to our viewers for providing new premieres, although with a little bit of delay. But the main concerns obviously came down to the voiceovers, and I think so that's where we had to find more innovative solutions to figure it out. But I'm saying overall picture wise, I think animation as an industry, we together realized when we were able to find those solutions that this is a very unique opportunity. And I think not just us, but on a bigger level, this industry was able to tide through tough times, because it inherently can be adapted like this, and in situations like this, which nobody could anticipate.
Okay, so Anu, how did you manage with the voiceovers? As most of the voiceovers are done by even kids for most of the kids programming, and in COVID situation, they must not be allowed to go to the studios, and sound studios might not function. So what did you do?
As Ashish, as Uttam mentioned, in the beginning it was it was a complete challenge. Not just voicing, of course, came as a last stage. First of all, the animation came to a complete screeching halt, at least in the first 15 to 20 days. But I have to give it to most of the studios. They were extremely innovative, the way they adapted to the situation and got the things going.
Yeah.
Last stage, of course, is always of dubbing. And for us, the challenge is even bigger because we dub it in 8 different languages. So it's not just Hindi.
Oh my
So, you just didn't have the advantage, okay, you dub it in Hindi and just put it out there, because then what happens to the rest of the 7 languages?
Yeah.
And again, different situation in different states, different stages of lockdown in different states. So while you had access, or you could manage 3 or 4 different languages, but you were still stuck with 3 or 4 different other languages. So then the only way we found out was we started requesting, and as I said, in a lot of our shows, it's the kids who actually do the dubbing and not the adults. So we actually, the sound engineers, the dubbing houses, the dubbing studios, basically, the broadcasters and the dubbing studios came together, and we came to this conclusion: let the dubbing artists do the dubbing from home. While it has its whole new challenge of especially telling the kids, because it's very difficult to direct the kids online and all that, because they're not used to it. Everybody was in the process of doing it for the first time. But yes, we finally managed to do it. Today, the kids, most of our dubbing is happening. As a matter of fact, there's a huge number of new episodes that we had launched during this period of time. We never stopped, whether it was across both on all the 3 channels of ours, which was either Nick, Sonic, as well as Junior. While Junior has its own, has only 2 languages, but Nick and Sonic have both have 8 languages each. So we did manage to, make it finally happen. Initially, it was a huge challenge, but today, even today, the majority amount of dubbing is happening from home. As a matter of fact, even to the extent of recording the title track of the shows is being done from home, because either the studios are shut down, or people are still quite skeptical of coming down to the studio for recording the songs.
So are you not facing a problem of, some additional sounds coming from the surroundings when the kids are dubbing at home, and that becomes very difficult?
It is a challenge which actually increases the work for the post-production, for the sound engineers to then clean up the voices. It has increased their workload substantially because of this factor. But fact is, the life has to go on. The work has to go on. Yeah. As everyone says, the kids are sitting out there, and for us, while it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity that you have so many eyeballs on your channel. You can't let them down. So it has to go on. At the same time, we are being absolutely sure that we don't want to compromise on the quality. And the other challenge was that while some of the big, voiceover artists, they do have some kind of a setup at their home, but a lot of VO artists don't have any kind of setup at their home. So people with some sort of a setup had started sending us their voice samples right in the beginning. But people who had actually nothing at home, we actually told them to record it on their phones and send it to us. And then the entire work of cleaning up the voicing and, making sure that the background noises and all that ambience noises are cut down, that was all handed over to the VO engineer,
the sound designers,
sound designers and editors. And that's how we managed, and things have gone up. So far, pretty well.
Just adding a point, I think as an Indian, we are very innovative in figuring out jugards. So Don, basically, these are hacks. We're very popular to, known for this. To in a time of adversity, we do find out ways and solutions to, hacks to get our work going. I think we were very, very innovative in these terms also. Nobody knew that this could happen and how to figure it out, but eventually, I guess, as a team, everybody was able to do it, which was great.
I've been hearing some great stories from our creators about those hacks. Creating roles around data management and transfer, specifically around dealing with bandwidth issues too as well.
Yeah, Don, I'm waiting to see some of the makings of these shows during COVID. That's going to be very interesting.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, so Joy, how having multiple shows in production, how did you really manage to really see that the music happens in time? How did you do the dailies on the lineup? and what really happened. So, to find a pace, because I believe you work with multiple cities as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I think we are all saying that it was extremely challenging. Let's not forget that outside of the COVID situation that completely gripped the country, there was also a storm that hit West Bengal,
Yeah.
which again had a huge impact because we work with quite a few producers from that part of the
Right.
country. And most of it was more about. So, honestly speaking, in terms of the production or the creative control or the creative supervision, rather, was done through. I mean, that was a little easier in terms of. Getting control over, because there was a constant feedback, and even while people were at home, there is a constant feedback that we could do. So there are a lot of recordings that I was a part of, in which we had a video call in which we were giving direct feedback on the music or the way the voiceover is done and things like that. So and that, I think we had a good framework under which I mean, there were a few teething issues in the beginning. What was the most difficult part is to be able to anticipate how much of content would we finally land up with, and planning the grid according to that. That
Okay.
I think, I at least we are still working things around. See, there are too many things that are playing. One is that there is a huge uncertainty about the situation, really. That is part one. There is an uncertainty about, like Anu mentioned a while earlier, about when are kids getting back to school, when is the drop in ratings going to happen. Another big factor was revenue, right?
Yeah.
The thought is also that if the revenue is not coming in, why are we using our best cards at a time
Yeah.
like this? So
Yeah.
are we here to serve the revenues? Are we here to serve the kids who want content more? And the heart went with, let's give the kids the content, and that bond or loyalty will last us even when the revenue comes back. So
So
those are the calls that had to be taken towards getting the mix right.
yeah. So we will come to the advertisements.
Just put in one word with Uttam said Jugaad, and you said
Yeah.
all the ambience noise. So some of the
Yeah.
VO artists, they actually, went into their cupboards to avoid the ambience noise and recorded things on their phone and send it to us. So,
Wow.
Don, we go to that extent. I mean, that's all that we have at our disposal. Make
Yeah, I think hack is the closest word. I don't think Jugaad has a word.
Hack is not the right translation
Yeah.
of Jugaad. Uttam.
No, just
So
the best
it's just
possible
like
scenario.
make do with the best stuff, the best possible situation that you are in. So they actually, some of the voiceover artists did that recording in their cupboards, in their wardrobes, so that they could avoid all the ambience noise.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
did you get the door cracking noise, which is
as I said,
kind of scary stuff.
all
Yeah.
that work was left to the sound editors. Poor guys. I feel for them, but yeah.
That's good. But Anu, the thing is that in this situation, the most easiest thing for you to do is roll out more and more scripts. So I think you must have rolled out almost a year scripts during this time.
You're absolutely right, Ashish. That was the easiest thing to do. That didn't stop at all. The scripts, one thing which never stopped at all was the scripting stage. That didn't stop, and we today working on almost 8 to 9 shows simultaneously. So the teams got, and the life became much more tougher, and for all of us, because suddenly we thought if even if the studios are not being able to cope up with the production, at least our work of scripting should not stop. So you are absolutely right. We do have the bank for next 6 months as far as scripting is concerned. That's been going on.
Actually, I have very interesting question on scripts, which will come little later. But
Sure.
right now, I want to go to Don and ask him. There have been huge amount of concerns when it comes to the kids space, and especially animation. In most of the countries, considered as kids genre, and the the loyalty that the kids have with the characters and the shows is very high, and that's where the concerns of not only the parents but also the programming areas and the whole process, the transformation post COVID or be it the COVID situation. Knowing that probably the situation might not get any better for maybe 6 months or a year, and some people are saying it will take 2 years to settle down. How do you see the technology transformation that you're doing, the programming transformation that you're doing, is going to look up in especially the online situation?
I think what you said earlier about how has our strategy changed, or has it much? And I'd say our strategy has always been obviously ensuring that YouTube Kids is the destination for those under 13, right? That is the core focus. It's a safer experience. It's built for the little ones and their little fingers too as well. Not all of them are little ones. Obviously, the 9 to 12s are a bit older. I have a 10-year-old here at home, but it's being able to work with our partners to give them an idea as to what are those boundaries. I think, the space of kids on YouTube and YouTube Kids is so vast, right? We don't have issues with pipeline per se. I think when Anu was talking about all the scripts being written, our creators are certainly not stopping on that front, but they have that real-time distribution opportunity, like they're jumping in full on. Choo Choo just launched their first full-length, I would say, full narrative, longer form narrative type show. First time ever. It's mostly been a lot of music that they've leaned into. So you're seeing that opportunity or that desire from the creators to say, hey, the kids are there, moms and dads are there. And we know that the trust funnel here is top of the ladder is moms and dads are the filter. What's great about this too as well is that educational component that's happening through the media, through platforms to ensure that parents are more engaged. Co-viewing for us is just blossomed tremendously across all platforms. So with more parents engaged, creators are saying, well, great, then I've got to create this type of content that's going to be seen as nutritious, that's going to see a value and address all those safety concerns. So it's a great energy level that's with partners rushing in to be part of that and wanting to obviously communicate the right things. You saw these waves, right? We've seen it all, right? That initial sort of when it all happened, it's informational content about reassuring families and kids about the times of COVID. What does it mean? Trying to interpret it. Lots of public service announcement type content. Then people got down to like, okay, well, this is with us for a while. How are we going to address that? Then you see the ministries of education leaning in and looking at how we can get their curriculum across the platforms. So that has happened. But it's like now we've got to lean into more educational content. We've got to be able to build content that is of utility or of value back to those families, because this is with us and there's no going back really at this point until they have some kind of vaccination solution, I suppose.
Yeah. So Don, you also have YouTube originals, as vertical, and I believe we have a team in India too looking at some of these. So did you also take up some of the kids' content to be made in YouTube originals?
So thanks for raising that. We announced last year in September a kids content fund under our YouTube originals team, and that's a 3-year investment, $100 million to globally. And the objective there is to really provide this high quality, enrichment, nutritious type content, and bring value to families. We have rolled out a few initially, and they've come out of the US. They did some. Now, this was an interesting sort of case on how do you get creative in these times. We rolled out a show kind of based on Rear Window, the old movie, kind of where kids see that, and it's all really kind of your 6+ type audience target. It's performed quite well. In India too as well, but it's all live action and it's all told through webcams, right? So that was all shot, good, strong, high production, but it's all like they did the shooting individually with the actual actors and such. But now we're looking at where we can go from this point on. There will be more announcements around that, but absolutely, this is a key pillar for our strategy too, going forward. Yeah.
To Uttam, Sujoy, and Anu, most of the parents that I discussed with during this time, the kids got really interested in cooking. during this 4 months. So did you do anything with cooking in specific with the kids? And I believe some of the kids did some amazing cooking.
On a personal level, or basically on something on television?
No, I believe that they got interested suddenly in cooking much larger than what they would do. But did you do anything on your channels to?
I think there was some, as far as Nick is concerned, there was some marketing initiative, or rather, which was done on digital for kids being asked to cook something and send their pictures, or those things were done, but not, of course, not creating that into a full-fledged program or any such thing, which could have been probably, yeah, you're right. Maybe cooking is something that we should be focusing on since we have all the time to cook and eat as well. So
it's doing well, Anu, I must say. It's DIY, cooking, exercise.
I completely agree. DIY is something that should be and is a huge opportunity, and I'm sure it's being done, especially with the live action kits, because you shoot it yourself and send the video out there. And the other thing that has really happened is we know how things are being done, so not everybody is focused on that high-end quality, whether the camera angle is right, whether the lighting is right. As long as you're seeing something which is fun, which is of interest to you, I think the audience will lap it up. And I completely agree on that front. And as a matter of fact, what Don said, it's a huge opportunity in terms of the educational stuff. So yes, while initially when this whole thing life came to almost to a standstill in the beginning, we all started sending out those social messages about COVID, how to save yourself, how to, with regard to all the hygiene factors. But I think very slowly we realized that there's too much of bombardment of messages happening from everywhere. And rather than keeping children, giving them some sort of a factor in terms of this is how you have to keep safe, it was almost, the atmosphere almost was becoming there's too much of information on that front, and probably was creating more panic. And that's when at least we can say that we step back a little and we realize too much of this stuff is happening, and they need to continue, and there needs to be some sense of messaging that needs to go on, that despite this, life still has to be normal, and life should be normal. And I think there's a huge opportunity, Ashish, which I feel as broadcaster and as programmers today. Today, the dilemma is that parents have always opposed to kids watching too much of television. But right now, their problem is they can't help but let their children watch too much of television because they don't have an option. Kids cannot go out.
Digital.
Or
Screen
digital.
time.
So basically consuming content. So far, we have seen, and the good way to maintain the balance should be, in my opinion, and I'm just almost giving out you a strategy, is so far the edutainment content, which is educational and entertainment, has been restricted to preschool. But I genuinely feel today there should be, and there could be a scope of bringing edutainment content even for the older kids, where children can easily watch it without, by telling parents, so we are not, all that we are watching is not just entertainment, and parents feel less guilty of leaving their children with that kind, or they feel more safer saying, okay, even if my kid is watching so much of content, at least they're watching something which is providing them some sort of information. So I think there is a huge scope, there's a huge opportunity. Now the question remains, we know for a fact that animation takes its own sweet time to come out. What nobody knows, and we are all hoping that life comes back to its a normal situation. How long will this thing go on? And then who is willing to take that risk? Whether it's the studio or the broadcaster, because we know for a fact that what we greenlit today, we're going to see it only after 8 to 9 months, and that too at the space at which we in India work. Globally, even that's outside, that's not even a remote possibility. But there is a huge opportunity out there. There is a need gap where you give information, or you teach children, but you teach them in a storytelling, and for the first time do it for the older kids, which so far have rejected this particular genre completely. But there's a possibility. There is an opening that something might like this. There could be takers even amongst the audience.
I agree. I think
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to answer that. Just I totally agree. I think with your 9 to 12s, they're really, really actually hurting at the moment because they can't see their friends. And you know how important it is for children at that age to be able to interact in a social environment. I mean, I think they're going towards, obviously, Fortnite is the one that's a big driver, and Minecraft's extraordinarily still popular. Roblox, all of those are social environments. Animal Crossing or whatnot, what's called, but all of those are becoming the social experiences. Now, what is there left for them in terms of the broadcast and the digital space in terms of consumption, content consumption? That is something that we are looking at as well. That was the whole point of our rolling out this YTO called Lockdown. Is to be able to give them an experience like this is what we understand, or at least the content is reflecting the kind of experiences they're having right now. So yeah, it'll be interesting how this shapes up.
Yeah. So just to add to Anu's point, very interesting, read which I was having in a newspaper was Google is currently basically working with CBSE to train about 1 million teachers. So they basically anticipating what is coming in the future and how edutainment or education through online is going to be one of the key big things. In fact, my ex-boss Discoveries, he also ventured into education space, and his startup has done really, really well. So those opportunities and digital transformations is happening, whether you are ready to adapt it, whether you're ready already with the infrastructure is a key thing. But I do firmly believe in the possibility and in the power of entertainment, and I think that is something which kids will come back for. Education has been around. We as Indian parents say 1/3 of a salary, for the future of the kids. So all those things are going to really keep coming in, and there's great opportunity. But at the same time, I think television, the space for the kids entertainment has been a driving force. So how does a platform which has been traditionally, let's say, linear, would adapt, to the future? That is something would be to be seen, because how do you change that habit? Because it is very passive. It's not like an interactive or active, because right now we are on Google Meet and we're interacting, but then television is a very passive consumption medium. So how do you adapt to those new challenges?
Well, I think we're seeing that also on Google too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll finish this up. But what we're seeing is this massive transformation on our platforms where it's gone from entertain me to educate me, right? Or edutain me.
Yeah.
No, very importantly, what is also happening is for the first time ever, parents are spending a lot more time with their kids, right? So there is a lot more co-viewing happening, and like you said, we are so concerned about what our kids are going to watch and what our kids are going to do, and let's set aside a lot of effort and investment towards that. Is that they are now investing into what the kids should be seeing rather than what the kids can see, and hence there could be a lot more co-viewing happening, plus a lot more push towards or a nudge towards watching content where you can learn from. Having said that, I think for us as broadcasters, I think we should still continue to stay. The key will be to stay core to our DNA, because even Uttam said, eventually we are born as entertainers. That's the conceptualization of these brands that we've created, and it's only we have to get into learning organically and still stay true to the DNA and see how we contribute to the learning piece of it.
Yeah, Sujay, while that is true, but what has happened is that if you look at the CBSE, ICSE, or the state boards, with the pressure of kids not being able to go to the school and a lot many other things happening during COVID, they have all decided to reduce the curriculum of the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
which is also good for us. Eventually, no stress.
One is good for you, but at that point in time, I would say that there would be parents looking forward to the networks to fill in something which kids can have a rhythm which is quite balanced. And I think, as Anu said, I think there will have to be an evolved programming to engage kids, which is into the entertainment space and the education in a subtle way. I think this is what is going to be the new normal. I think. What do you think about having this as an active programming effort?
So as Discovery, we are in a very unique position to also make use of that opportunity. Frankly, we do have, so all those basically opportunities are open. We will have to see how the things shape up and how we adapt. In fact, during the COVID, one of the best things which Discovery did was also launch its OTT product, which was Discovery Plus. And we probably were a little late in the whole scope, but that and being pushed by very wonderful my colleague from Discovery, and we were able to launch that. So, and that is getting great traction. We've not really put in a kids content out over there, like the entertainment one, but there is definitely science, there is information, there is factual stuff out there for both in long form and both in short form. And we are seeing great traction on that product already. So as a company, again, we're trying to adapt, we're trying to find ways wherein we are also able to use this unique opportunity to engage with an audience. And frankly, television as a linear space has also while it had a great reach, but it's not a massive reach which India can provide you. With close to 300 million kids out there, who would want to see the content. We are only probably able to reach 150 million, through our own linear television. So there is great opportunity, and that is an underserved, audience, which still would love to see the content. Whether you have, as we've been discussing, a public broadcaster opportunity is completely open. So that is a space, or of course, the streaming services, OTTs, taking your content out there and making it open.
Yeah, actually, we are pushing hard for the public broadcaster, and I think that would help the programming overall. But Anu, the thing is that in some parts of the country, the COVID situation is much better. In some parts, it's really intense, and people probably in Pune, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai probably don't know when the schools will really reopen. Whereas there are cities in the same state, or maybe cities in northern India or some of the other places where the impact is much lesser and situation is improving, the schools might get open. So how do you really schedule your programming? Because normally it used to be a pattern of programming, the timings and everything, and now there are suddenly large amount of kids who are not going to the school, and the large amount of kids going to the school in some parts of the country. It's all not following the school timings per se. So in the next 4-5 months, how do you really set this new pattern?
So looking at what the situation is, Ashish, now, as you said, the pattern has got completely, or the normal routine scheme of things have got completely disruptive. So now from a broadcaster, and especially from a programmer point of view, now we are taking each month literally as a vacation period. So we are not holding back things, let's say, traditionally it has always the summertime, which is April, May, June, which we call AMJ quarter, and the OND, which is October, November, December, when you have the maximum vacation period. Today we are not going to distinguish between these two. Today, month on month, we have to keep coming up with newer stuff to keep kids engaged, because while we very well know there are half the country is sitting at home and probably half the country is going back to the schools, which is also usually the situation during the summer vacation, that in the west, the vacation starts much earlier, and in the central, east and north of India, the vacation starts later. So you only have those 10 to 15 days when you have a common vacation period in India. So going forward, what we are looking at is treat every month as if it's a month of vacation, or there is enough audience sitting out there, and you have the viewership, the people are sitting, and you have the eyeballs to grab. So that's how we're going to plan out our life. The only balance, as Sujoy had mentioned and I had mentioned in the opening thing, is to maintain that right balance as to how much you want to let it go. Because end of the day, you also need to keep an eye on the revenue, because you cannot keep making investment till the time the revenue does not come back. And then it becomes a vicious cycle that if revenue is not going to come back, the budgets are going to get cut further. We just need to keep an eye on how much you really want to, how much the advertisers now started recognizing the fact that you are delivering the kind of GRP, especially the kids category is delivering the kind of GRPs that they are delivering. And one is just keeping the fingers crossed that the revenue comes back on track, and then we go all out. But for us, we are no longer waiting for the traditional holiday season to come out. We will be rolling out as the studios, as I'd mentioned, while the studios have come back on track, but the pace is not 100%, and probably it might not be 100% for a few more months to come. So even the production pipeline has slowed down. But today we are virtually treating every month as a vacation period and not just holding back, traditionally how we used to, that to hold back bulk of the stuff for a particular quarter when we knew the vacations are out. As in, for us today, as in when we get the content in our hand, we are putting it out there for the kids to watch.
So Sujoy, with the pressure on, on the budgets, because advertisers are not going to spend the same way, whereas they are actually getting the larger viewership today. How do you really put this across to your advertisers, or to see that it eventually helps programming, because the budgets for the same programming is not going to be the same. It's going to be reduced for the next 1 year, 1.5 years. But we still have to see Diwali. We still have to see the December. We still have to prepare for the 21 summer. So how do you see this impacting and rolling out?
See, the advertisers are going to come back when sentiments of consumptions are going to go up. Currently, given the current situation, the economics that are working out currently are that yes, there is clearly directionally a hope that we are seeing things are getting better in some parts of the country for sure, and that should then lead to consumption growth, which then will fuel your advertising revenue, because unless they see that there is something that is coming up for them, they are not going to, irrespective of how many GRPs we are delivering, and or whether we are launching a new show or the best animation effort that is being put in, right? So that economics will work fairly individually is what I would like to believe, and I think that is one of the three factors that will impact how we would strategize basis the budget, which is directly linked to the revenue, the current situation, and the viewing pieces, like the question that Anu answered for you, and what are we going to do when it comes to holiday planning or big viewership planning. So that those three pieces pretty much are going to stack up to be able to deliver. To answer your question directly in terms of what are we going to do when the budgets are cut, I think the answer again is going to be sticking to what we thought or we believed in terms of content, and try to make most of that. So we'll not be able to spread ourselves thin. The experimentations are going to go down into delving into new content, because content bank is currently what's driving the category. And you look at our channel or any other channel in the category. Depth will always be chosen over width, because that's how kids are watching content, and not a part of strategy that we are doing. So yes, so width will suffer, depth will keep growing. So that will be the strategy in case there is a big impact on budgets.
Yeah, so we have pretty much come to an end, and it's quite engaging. While you engage kids, I think even this talk was pretty engaging, and we just didn't know how the 1 hour was just passed. But I will, before closing, I would like one or two sentence closing remark from each one of them. We'll start with Don.
So in terms of what the future and what it looks like, exciting, contentious, challenging, creative, if I'm using words here. And I think a good time to be in this space, very exciting, dramatic. important for our creators to be part of this and us being there for them.
Yeah, hi, Sujoy.
Yeah, so for me, it is definitely how are we marching alongside kids, because they are really, really, really having a tough time. I mean, we know what the kind of tough time that we are having, and these are just kids. So yeah, we have to march along with them and basically ensure that we both tide through it.
Hi, Anu.
I think Sujoy has spoken from kids' point of view. Let me speak from as a creator point of view. I think nobody expected this kind of disruption. It's to call it a bizarre experience would be an understatement. But the silver lining to that whole experience has been we managed to get on with our lives. We never let anything stop. Even in this situation that nobody had imagined in their wildest of dreams, we didn't let anything stop, barring for first 10 to 15 days when we were just trying to grapple with the situation and trying to understand what has happened to the life. We still moved on. So that's the best silver lining that I can think of in this situation. One just prays life come back to its normalcy soon, and we don't have to go through this. But for now, one can say, even in the worst of situation, we managed to get things on track very fast. So,
Yeah. Hi, Uttam.
So I agree with what everybody's saying. I'm a very optimist person. I am very bullish on the kids genre and the entire kids brand. For India, I think this is the time when we are actually really finding our DNA. And it's been a struggle. We've been in this space for close to 15 years. When there was hardly any local Indian animation on the kids channel, to now not just having our own 95% of local animation, but also advertisers who are ready to put in money for this same kind of a content. So I think we're really finding the DNA. We are strengthening it collectively, and I mean, the credit is to all the people and the leaders, definitely Nickelodeon, who've been leading the entire play over here. So and not just that, but the kind of employment which is there currently in the ecosystem, with close to about 400 to 500 animators working on one IP. So you can imagine, what kind of a ecosystem which we are trying to build. So I'm very bullish. I'm very optimist. And currently this COVID kind of gave us a free, space to connect with an audience. I would have wished, frankly, that the dependency on the advertising was not so much, but because the demand from the kids is humongous currently. So that sign is very positive. It's all green, signals for us. And I don't think why we should be stopping it. Things will fall in place. That's humankind. So I'm very hopeful.
Rightly said, Uttam, but I was told that in the COVID situation, along with DNA, RNA is also very important to look into. Yeah, so
and for that, I think the onus is in fact on the advertisers. They can't wait for the consumers to start. I think this is the time the cycle should start from the advertisers. The more they start advertising, the things will fall into place.
If you ask me one wish, I would like to ask the government to allow CSR for advertising. And
Ashish, you're seeing some of that happen, and we're certainly seeing inquiries from advertisers around how can we actually structure something around a CSR initiative or education. So there is movement, but I agree with them. They got to take responsibility too.
So it's been really great. In fact, I wanted to discuss character licensing, merchandising, where people can buy online because they are not able to go to store and all. But you kept us so engaging that we just couldn't go to some of those areas, and we'll have to ask Jai Kumar to have another session to discuss some of these offline, online stuff. But it's been really enlightening, and I think a few years past COVID situation, we will all once review this kind of a panel and see how we actually tackle this. And I think it's going to be a great mark on our career paths to have seen COVID happen and we being caught in the midst of it, and especially at a very responsible kind of job profile where we need to look at the programming for kids and content for kids and keep them engaging. It has been a true enlightening session, and I believe all the people who are viewing it would also really see this as a useful session. And I really have a great takeaway that, whatever may happen, the Jugaad and the whole things that, we are capable of doing things in all such situations would continue, and more innovation will come out, and we will continue to serve the kids and, make sure that we keep them entertained. Big thank you to all of you for making it today, and a big thank you to Animation Masters Summit 2020 to actually rope in some of these kind of topics which are very relevant to today's time, and making sure that all the engagements are really perfectly planned, so that we are able to get the audience what they really want to see. And there are quite a few sessions lined up tomorrow and day after too, and I wish you all the best. And again, a big thank you to all the panelists for being there. Thank you very much. And I hand over.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hand it over to the team at Animation Masters Summit 2020.